Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Wednesday, May 18th, 2016. Can I have a roll call, please?
Dan Carey.
Present.
Peg Coniff. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Joseph McCoy.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
Joy Winnie.
Here.
Okay, could we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have approval of the minutes of April 12th? Motion for the approval.
You mean April 20th.
April 20th, yes, April 20th.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Any abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention, two abstentions for the 20th. Okay, now I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes of May 4th.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any against? And then I'll abstain, and two of us abstaining for the 4th. Jen and I. Okay. Motion passes. Public speak time. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to address the council from other than what's on the public hearings, not seeing any, we can move on. We have no communications for correspondence. The mayor is not here tonight for mayor communications, so we can move right to standing committees. Finance, Councilor Rist.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are going to continue our meetings on the 24th and 25th. That's next Tuesday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. in room 1 on the budget. I'd like to, in the form of a motion, schedule a public hearing for July 6th, the first meeting in July, for the review of stipends ordinances, which you received in your packet today. That's the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to set a public hearing for the review of the stipends, July, what was that date?
July 6th.
July 6th. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'd also like to schedule a public hearing for a finalization of the 2017 budget for June 1st in these chambers.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for the public hearing for the 2017 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
That concludes.
Okay. Public Safety, Councilor Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are working on setting a meeting to review the street acceptance protocol. We're going to do like an hour and a half and just take it page by page and really try and get that to the point where we can put it forward to the planning board again. I would like to make a motion to remove Fox Run as a public way from our public safety agenda. We've heard from the planning department and the DPW, and it seems like there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. I did ask the attorney if she'd like to take it off, but I didn't hear back. It's been like 3.5 weeks. So,
Okay.
I think the motion should include the words "without prejudice." because-
without prejudice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a motion and a second to remove without prejudice the Fox Run as a public way. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Thank you. And we are continuing to look at the on-street parking on the section of Pleasant Street in front of the Valley Mills project.
Okay. That concludes then.
This concludes.
Appointments, Councilor Smith.
Okay, I have no old business to report, but I do have 3 new mayoral appointments under new business to make in the form of a motion to move to subcommittee.
Second.
So-
Do you want to name them? I'm sorry.
I was just going to make the motion to forward Angela Zamorelli for the ECA Plus Grants Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/18. Raymond Redfern to the Licensing Board with a term expiration of 6/6/22, and Donald Meltzer to the Nashawanic Pond Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/18.
Second.
There's a second to move those 3 previously named to mayoral appointments to appointment subcommittee for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
And we would like to have our next meeting at 5:30 on, sorry, let me get my
6/1.
calendar. 6/1.
Okay.
That works. Right?
And that concludes, I assume. Oh, sorry, yeah, okay.
concludes.
Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind people in the public that we are going to have a discussion at our next subcommittee meeting, which is going to be May 25th at 6 p.m. To look at Councilor Smith's plastic bag proposal. So that's something that we're going to be doing here at 6 p.m. on the 25th. It looks like a little housekeeping is in order. I would like to make a motion to gain 60 days extension on the food truck ordinance, please.
Second.
A motion and a second for a 60-day extension on the food truck ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
Okay. Concludes. The 25th meeting, is that going to be up here, Salem?
Don't believe so. I think we're going to be in
Conference room.
conference room B.
Okay. Property, Councilor Kwasinski?
No report this evening?
Okay. Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Riss.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have all the mission statements, so we're going to meet June 1st at 5:15 right here to finalize those as a Rules Committee and present them to the council that evening for finalization. There was minor editing. I'd like to thank Barbara for making sure the letters that are supposed to be in our rules are properly ordered, etc. I would like now to ask Councilor Hayes to explain, because it was under old business, because she wasn't here last meeting, her request.
Oh, great. So what I was noticing is that from 4/20 forward, we have actually put in the applications for people who want to sit on boards and committees, and prior to that, we hadn't. I know there had been some discussion about whether or not we'd have their public information online. So now what I'm seeing coming from 420 is that we're redacting their phone numbers and their address, which I think is a perfect solution to that. There's some other cases where we get our agenda and then paperwork has come in afterwards. I know specifically of one that I did where we had a new business and then I added the resolution to it, and that resolution never made it to our city council packet. So our city council packet from 420 is actually online and incomplete. So it's those kind of pieces that are just the nature of the business, because we have things come in later, so that when we have the city council packet online for the public, that it is actually complete and everything that's supposed to be there with it. I mean, if we look with the 3 mayoral appointments that are done, we do have applications from 2 out of the 3, but we don't have anything, I don't see from, oh, nope, there's an email from Ray Redford. Yep, so that we do have that on there, and it is redacted now, but we weren't doing that when we first started doing it in February, March. They're not there, so.
I'm not sure what, may I, Mr.
Yeah,
Bishop?
sure.
I'm not sure what you're asking be done, because I believe the clerk will catch up. I believe the resolution you're mentioning arrived at our chambers right at the council time, and it's in the minutes as it was placed, as I read this evening. And the redaction of phone numbers, et cetera, for appointees, we want to continue that. Are you suggesting that we should mention that on the online? I'm not sure
No,
what
no,
you're
no,
asking.
you
I'm
can
really
see
not
what it's
asking
done.
what-
Prior to that, we weren't even putting the applications in the packet,
but we are now.
but we are now.
So, in other words, I believe that the council, and we're working through this, as I suggested the last time, I think the council clerk is doing what you requested. Things are online, and applications are online. I just don't see a new rule being needed. That's what I'm asking. Why do we need to?
It was just a matter of making sure that they were labeled correctly, because we do have some city council packets that are incomplete that are online right now, and they're not labeled as incomplete.
I don't know how to respond to that. You're saying that the February and January council packets are incomplete because they don't have the applications in there.
I believe so, yes.
Barbara, do you know anything about that?
Well, that's because we weren't scanning the whole thing at that time. We were only doing the agendas. So, I mean, from now going forward, everything is in there.
Yeah.
But at that point, we were only doing the agendas.
We hadn't
That's-
approved
No,
the finalized.
We hadn't started doing the electronic,
Okay.
so that's why they're not on there.
But I think if it's all right, I think, Barbara, you could go back and add those items.
I don't keep everything together. I would have to recreate everything.
All right.
So-
And how far, and at some point, I think
mean,
if you draw a
from-
line, because how far
Yeah,
back do you go?
Yeah, going forward, it'll be on, but going back, you know.
If I might speak up to that, I certainly think this was a transition that we all started. We all agreed we're going to try to do online and paper and posting, and it's all new, and I wouldn't think it would make sense to go back at this point. But certainly going forward, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad we're doing that. Was there some other issues with?
It's just making sure that it was clear, just the best practices, making sure that we have everything on there, that when we say it's a city council packet, that it is the entire packet. And I know from the April 4th, it's not the entire packet right now.
Because April 4th, the resolution is missing?
Right, exactly,
Okay.
because I had handed that in
Right,
late,
right,
so I knew
right,
that
right.
that was going in late.
Right.
I mean, there may be others, I didn't go through absolutely every single one, but I did notice that we were doing the electronic packet, but we weren't putting in the applications because of the personal nature of the information as far as phone numbers and
Right.
stuff, and that was something we talked about.
Right.
So I was presenting this as a solution, we could still put them on there, but redact the phone numbers and
Right,
addresses.
which is what we're.
Which is now what we're doing,
Right,
which we've
right.
started April 4th.
Right,
So, and then I wasn't here the next meeting, so.
okay. And so if it was just a matter of adding the resolution to the April 4th packet, that would make it complete, right?
That one would be complete.
Right.
And then the prior ones are just, the applications for appointments. Because I think that's important for the community to know who's applying for positions, because we weren't putting them in there at all, so.
Right, right. Okay. Councilor Riss?
I believe, I agree with Councilor Kozinski that going back and putting them online isn't necessary at this point. Prior to this year, everything was on paper, and it's still available on paper should someone want to know who this person is and how they were appointed for the February and January appointments. So I believe moving forward, we're in good shape, and I think we take, in other words, we take your request under advisement, and I think the clerk is going to do it
Great.
from now on.
Which I guess obviously comes to the next one. So this was obviously submitted by you, Councilor Hayes. Are you comfortable with this discussion and that you want to remove this from the agenda, or do you want to submit this to the?
Nope, we can remove it from the agenda, that's fine.
So if you don't mind just doing that in a motion, then just say, ask it.
For the motion, I will respectfully remove my suggestion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I believe I ended my appointment, I did say my meeting was June 1st, 5:15, so
Right.
that concludes rules.
Okay, perfect. Naming committees, we're open. I just checked with the city clerk as far as the ballpark naming. I don't think we've received any names yet. The boardwalk committee, we did actually have a meeting, and we discussed in light of the mayor's letter, of what his previous mayor's letter, of what his desires were considering that. And it was not really in favor of a whole boardwalk naming, but maybe there's an area, a bench area of the boardwalk that could be made reference to Deb Tosnick. So that's where the committee is going now. We'll be meeting again shortly, and then because it will not probably be a naming of the boardwalk, because the mayor was not necessarily for that, probably naming committee will come to an end, and then another group will then form to work on what would be another solution to honor Deb Tosnick in that area. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearings.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion passes. Okay, Councilor Rist.
Thank you. We have first a supplemental appropriation request of $3,000 from free cash to be appropriated to the building inspector personal services account. The amount requested to provide funds for personal services, this is to cover for the cost of absences occurring earlier in the year. It's basically catching up in that particular account. It's rather simple. This happens at the end of the budget year all the time. We have to catch up on some of our accounts, and we use free cash or reserve to do so. If you have any questions, the finance director's here. These were all approved 3-0, and they're basically the mayor and the finance director were the ones who dealt with them at our committee meeting.
Are there questions for the finance director concerning this appropriation? Okay, I guess I'll
Take a motion. I request the council approve a supplemental appropriation. The amount is $3,000 to be appropriated from free cash, $3,000 to be appropriated to building inspector personal services, $3,000. They will be used for the purpose to provide funds for personal services in the building department.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the supplemental appropriation of $3,000 from free cash for the building inspector personnel services. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
The next one is wonderful in the sense that we do not have a deficit moving into the new fiscal year for snow and ice. This request is $70,000 from free cash. This completely clears the snow and ice deficit. The original amount, I don't know if I have this correct, was it 165, the original amount in that budget? Oh, all right, I have the wrong, all right, 200 was the original amount in the budget, and we needed 70,000 because it was a light year. So by doing this, last year we had a huge amount that we had to pay up. So this is great. We don't have a deficit, which would hit our books, you know, it would hurt our free cash and everything in the fall. This still leaves 165,000 in free cash. I'm correct there? Okay. I wrote my notes backwards.
Yeah, it leaves 165,000 in free cash if
Right.
all of the transfers are approved this evening.
After they're all approved, that's
Yep.
what I meant to say. Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for the finance director?
Councilor Whitney?
I don't have any questions. I'm just gonna make the statement that I've been here for 20 years, and I think this is the first time we've actually
Paid it off.
paid it off and not have to go into carrying it over into the new budget. So this is like, wow.
Makes budget planning easier, I think. Do you want to say something? Okay. So
You're going to say something.
It's the second year.
What was the first year?
Last year.
Oh, because we had that extra money.
Oh, we paid it off with free cash.
Oh,
We had that
the
extra money because of the,
We paid off a large amount last year.
Did we pay off the full amount?
Yes.
Yeah, it was big.
okay,
I think it was all the
Right,
new growth
okay,
that we had.
I stand corrected.
I do recall that.
Okay. So any additional questions for the finance director or the finance chair? No? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I would like the council to make a motion to approve a supplemental appropriation of $70,000 to be appropriated from free cash, to be appropriated to snow and ice deficit account.
I'm sorry,
Just a
Councilor.
quick point over. I know that no one's here, but it probably for the record just would be good.
Oh.
I said that.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you?
I don't know. If
I didn't hear
Said
that.
there is
I
no public
apologize.
here.
There is, again,
I
yes, but each
apologize.
time.
I wasn't very loud.
But each time,
Okay.
it just.
So the people
I see each
who
one as a
view it
separate-
know that we've done it right, yes. So I'll repeat my motion. A supplemental appropriation is requested. The amount requested is $70,000 to be appropriated from free cash, to be appropriated to the snow and ice deficit account, $70,000, to provide funds for the FY16 snow and ice deficit.
Second.
A motion is second for the supplemental appropriation of $70,000 from free cash to finish up the snow and ice deficit. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
The next one is always wonderful when we're able to do this. Our stabilization in general and our capital stabilization account is our savings account, and whenever we can move money into it at the end of the fiscal year, it's wonderful. This is very good for our bonding. Whenever we have to bond, our bonding rates go down because they see stable government. This request was for $200,000. It's being split 100 to each account. I believe we have 1.6 million after this in stabilization and 730,000 in capital stabilization. Am I right on those figures? 1.6 million? That's after we approve this, which is a good number. And if we have, one of the things the finance director did mention, the capital stabilization account is designed so that we wouldn't have to borrow if we have a big ticket item like a $300,000 truck or fire engine we have to buy. We'll have money in an account and not have to borrow and therefore have interest to deal with. The smaller items like police cars, we try to deal with under free cash, et cetera, when we get them. But that's why that account is there, and it's wonderful. Again, bonding agencies like to see it. Any questions for me or the finance director?
A question of the finance director or the chair, and I get anyone from the public who would like to come to the, not being seen? Okay.
I'll make a motion that the council approve a supplemental appropriation request of $200,000 to be appropriated from free cash, to be appropriated to general stabilization, $100,000, capital stabilization, $100,000, for a total of $200,000, to transfer funds into general and capital stabilization.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second for the supplemental appropriation of $200,000 into general and capital stabilization funds. All those in, any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against, opposed, motion passes.
I'll move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to close public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We did naming committees, we did old business, we did new business, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion, a second, to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, see you June 1st.
We have to
There's only
sign.
one meeting in
Almost
June.
broke my right.